Hello, we are at day 19 of 21 days prayer and fasting. And again, the theme, central story, has been the story of Ezra and God's provision and how he stirred up the heart of King Cyrus, how he stirred up the heart of Ezra and later Nehemiah. And God was working, right? And it took, obviously, we talked about a step of faith from Ezra to be like, okay, you want us to go from captivity to go back and rebuild the temple, and then for Nehemiah's case, rebuild the wall and return back to our land. But that first step was probably the biggest step, hurdle, right? You want us to go back? How, God, how is this going to work? We're in captivity. And it was a step of faith. And when God calls us to do something, it is a step of faith. And as we are in faith, as we progress and mature in our faith, usually the step is bigger each time. So how do we take these bigger steps? How are we able to take the bigger steps? Well, it's like when we learn to walk or when we learn to ride a bike, right? You first start off with training wheels, and then you take off the training wheels, and then you're kind of riding up and down the street until you get so comfortable, used to it, that now you're riding up throughout the city, or you're riding up the mountain and down the mountain, or wherever it may be. But it takes these steps, and though we may not consciously remember it, it's probably a subconscious thought. When we're riding the bike, we have these subconscious memories of, oh yeah, I can do this. I graduated from training wheels. I went down the street. I went in my neighborhood. I went through the city. Of course I can do this. Well, faith's the same way, except it's not such a subconscious thing. It's a more of a conscious thing. We remembered what God did. And that's, we at Living Hope, we say, remembering God's past promises in our lives allow us to walk into his future promises. And when we remember what God has done in our lives, that's why we praise and we give God thanks for what he's done, because it allows us, it gets us in the mindset where we remember what he did, so we can go forward and we can trust and say, oh yeah, God was faithful here. God was faithful then. God provided a way there. God provided a way then. And so when we're pressed with this task of obeying God, it isn't, oh, man, I've never seen God, I never did. No, it's like, oh yeah, God was faithful. Boom, boom, boom. He's going to be faithful again. And so I want us to just write down, if you're able to write down, if you want to put it in your phone, that's fine. Write down just all the times that you can remember God was faithful. And I just want you to read that list a couple times. It's probably going to take a while. I imagine it may take a while. I just like when you just stop and think. When I was in college, we had this exercise my senior year, where for every year we just wrote about it. And the professor said, obviously, the early years, you're probably going to have to use some sourcing from parents and grandparents. And for us, right, maybe it may take us a time to remember. But I imagine, as we look back at all the times God has been faithful, we're going to come with a pretty hefty list. And I just want to encourage you to write the list, but then also read the list. And maybe keep that list. If you have it in your phone, store it in your phone. If you're going through a difficult time, you can refer to that list. It's one of the reasons, I've just been fascinated. I love the story of Israel coming out of slavery in Egypt. But they do all that. God does all those things. And they've been enslaved for so long, and now they're free and on the cusp of the promised land. And what ultimately keeps them from entering in the promised land, Moses and that generation, is they don't remember what God had done just a few months ago. And what keeps so many of us in our faith from walking in the promises that God has for us, we forget what God has done in the past. So let's not forget. Let's lean into the goodness of God so we can walk into the new promises of God. Know you're loved. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.